In this week's program, we're visiting with North Dakota Game and Fish Department Director Jeb Williams, and we're going to talk about some of the accomplishments and challenges in 2024 and what lies ahead in 2025. I'm Mike Anderson with the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Jeb, it's hard to believe 2024 has come to an end, 2025 is here. What were some of the biggest accomplishments for the Game and Fish Department in 2024?
Well, I think, Mike, if a person looks back, I think people are going to look back at a really good upland year. There's no doubt. I think that our pheasant numbers, grouse numbers, partridge numbers, probably combined, the three of them, probably as good of an opportunity that we've had in the upland season if you combine all three of those from a diverse bag kind of standpoint. I think that was pretty significant and a nice opportunity for people. Obviously, too, a nice increase with our public access and our plots program, about a 40,000 acre increase with that. We know access is a pretty significant issue, obviously in North Dakota. Hunting opportunities just are certainly very competitive, and so having additional acres in our plots program is a good thing. From our fisheries aspect, probably not quite as good a year, from an overall catching standpoint, but we know our fisheries are still very strong, still very healthy. Again, a very good production year between our department and the hatcheries as far as the stocking effort and the number of fingerlings, the number of fry that were raised. I mean, all that goes into our hatchery systems is just a phenomenal year that is certainly gonna prove big over the years.
Jeb certainly had some challenges in 2024 too, and the white-tailed deer numbers are still rebounding from the EHD a few years back and the bad winters and stuff. What's gonna bring those back?
Unfortunately, it's time, right? I mean, time is the biggest factor in the areas where we have habitat on the landscape, and we do. There are areas of the state that were pretty significantly hit by EHD, but there is habitat on the landscape there, so it takes time. It takes some good weather, winter weather. Last winter, we had very mild winter, which was good. Anytime you can have that mild winter, critters go into the reproductive season in better shape, and so that's always a good recipe. In other areas of the state where we have lower deer numbers, the picture might not be quite as bright, just simply because the carrying capacity on the landscape is just not what it once was. Fish and wildlife resources obviously have some habitat needs for their existence. Some areas of the state we have that, some areas of the state we don't, and we're trying to do what we can and working with as many partners, working with as many landowners as we possibly can to identify areas where we can improve and we can do better, to where that landowner can obviously make their business decisions, but where we can also get some conservation benefits in place as well.
Jeb, all these wildlife need habitat, whether they're upland birds or big game or waterfowl. A few weeks ago, we just had a habitat and hunting access summit. How did that go, and explain that a little bit?
Well, I think it was good. One of those scenarios where, and I think the governor said it really well in his opening remarks, where we're probably not gonna solve any of these big issues tonight. And that was kind of our focus and kind of our communication to people. We're not necessarily looking to solve the issues tonight, but we are looking to bring in a lot of different folks from different areas to collaborate with, whether that be different partner groups, whether that be landowners, whether that be energy. There's just a lot of different players when it comes to the North Dakota landscape, and we need to collaborate to try to help determine what our future hunting and fishing opportunities are going to be. And the fortunate part of that is we have people that are interested in that. As the attendance at that summit indicated, it was very well attended. We've received some great comments on it. People enjoyed the information. People really responded with asking a lot of questions ahead of the summit, sending in their comments, sending in their questions, and then the department was able to was able to, put those questions in place and to our panelists, and then even the presentations to help answer some of those things to where we could be most efficient with our time. So it was just a great night of collaboration and a lot of great ideas, a lot of great discussion, and just building relationships, because that's ultimately what it takes.
Jeb, as you mentioned, newly elected Governor Armstrong opened that summit. Explain how that relationship is, and of course you were reappointed by him early in December.
Yeah, so it's no secret to anybody. New Governor Armstrong, very outdoors orientated. I mean, definitely part of his fabric, growing up, definitely in his DNA. And so it's somebody that's very passionate about our outdoor resources in North Dakota. Really sees the big picture, I think, too, when it comes to some of the other issues that he is working with as governor, whether it be workforce, retaining kids in North Dakota, attracting people to North Dakota, all those things, and just understands that so many of us that grew up in North Dakota have stayed in North Dakota because what we have here is really special. And again, that gets back to one of the reasons why we had the summit and why we do what we do and have so many different collaboration, with so many different people, because things we have in North Dakota are very special. And Governor Armstrong, as people heard, obviously shares that vision.
Yeah, and he reflected on his hunting heritage with his dad and his family over the years. Let's move into 2025, Jeb. Right after the first of the year, legislative session.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, every other year, obviously, in North Dakota, it's every other year sessions, and so we're heading into a legislative session. Like always, that'll bring a wide variety of things, some things that we know about that are gonna come to, some things that we maybe don't know about yet, and but I guess one thing is consistent. Department's always available. We're always provide the information that anybody needs to make decisions. Try to put out as much information as we can on different bills and different things that impact the fish and wildlife resources in North Dakota. And some bills will be in support of, some bills will be opposed, but one of the things the department again always does is good about providing any information to anybody, regardless of what side of the bill that you're on, and so we'll see how it goes. But again, it's always an interesting 4 months, but then after the legislative session, we have some challenges ahead of us. We went into this winter and most of the state anyway, good chunk of the state, pretty good drought conditions. And so we're gonna have to see where that leads us to. And not that drought is a stranger to North Dakota, but some pretty significant drought in some areas of the state where there hasn't been much rain, if any rain, since July in certain areas.
Right, and that can affect habitat.
Certainly can. One of the things that we saw last year was that we had pretty good rainfall early on until about July in pretty good chunks of the state. But then the rain definitely stopped. I mean, it literally stopped in some areas. And so we had decent habitat conditions up till about that mid-July point. And then after that, things got really dry. And so there were some benefits, to that from a wildlife perspective, that we did have the habitat early on, getting through kind of the reproductive season. But then after that, it really stopped and the rain stopped. And so there were some challenges, dry conditions, and the fact we all saw, some big fires across the landscape. And so just the communication efforts, wanting to make sure to communicate, how hunters can make sure that we're acting responsibly and not causing any of those fires, and those types of things. So that's always just some extra communication that goes into North Dakota when we're dealing with drought.
It's kind of a double-edged sword. Not a lot of snow so far this winter. That kind of helps the wildlife. We're into January now, and they've kind of really 2 months less of winter compared to some winters.
You hit it on the head. I think there's no doubt. And anytime we can get to Christmas or January 1st with not too much winter, and I think this winter kind of checks that box, although there's probably some folks in the northern part of the state that are shaking their head at me right now. I mean, they've had a little bit more winter up there, obviously, than other parts of the state, but across the state as a whole, anyway, we're getting to this point without much winter, and that's a positive. Any time that those critters can not actually have to rely on any of their fat reserves yet, or even in some areas continuing to build in their fat reserves, for these January, February, kind of March stretch is definitely something that is beneficial. And then like we talked about earlier, the healthier they go into the reproductive season, that's a big piece of the puzzle. We talk a lot about winter mortality or winter health, and it certainly is an impact in North Dakota, but if you also combine that with the critters that then survive the winter, but they're going into the reproductive season in not as good a health, then that impacts our reproduction as well, and that's a significant factor in North Dakota.
So 2025 should be a good year for outdoors people.
Well, we're sure hoping so. Again, depending on kind of what the weather looks like the rest of the winter, moisture level. I'm always one too, and if you could pick it, I'd much rather have the rain come in late March and April, filling up those sloughs rather than having to rely on maybe 100 inches of snow. But sometimes you can't be choosy with that. But I think opportunity-wise, we're going to be in good shape. And I always say that in North Dakota. We know we have some roller coasters of different things, different opportunities, but if you're somebody that appreciates the outdoors, there's always going to be an opportunity for you of something that is going to be riding somewhat of that high rather than a low.
A lot of great information, Jeb. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.